And now for Dinner with Racers with your hosts, Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman.
Placeholder radio sound. I'm a driver and I'm very angry. The sound of a driver on the radio during a race.
Smells like sex in here.
Hey, look who it is!
What's going on? He's wearing the shirt.
Oh, wow.
What's going on? You doing all right?
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm Ryan. How are you?
We're having a little dinner with racers, if you will.
Oh, stop it. That show sucks. Cool. So we got any fireworks, or what are we talking here?
I mean, we could probably make some.
Oh, all right. I'm in for that. Okay.
We had
cool.
a grease fire
cool.
going here not too long ago.
Yeah, I like. So basically, the goal of this video we're doing is like, if you were a fan that was deciding on what racetrack you wanted to go and check out, and you never thought to go to VIR because it's like Danville, Virginia.
Yeah.
All right.
It's out there.
You're gonna watch this video and go, okay, cool. There's cool new restaurants. There's a revitalized downtown area that's taking place. There's history. There's a f***ing tank museum.
Yeah.
Flamethrower day is coming up.
Yeah.
Also, the history of the track. Did you guys know that this was like the party track?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. I've been racing here since 2003, and this was like the
Party.
place that people partied so much that the track got closed.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know. You got into some real estate business early, and then as a young man, you bought some race cars. Is that correct?
I bought a car or two to race.
Right.
And that's all I could do.
Is that when you went to VIR at that point?
Yeah, that's when
Okay.
I raced.
So, young Harvey Siegel, the racer, before you are the Harvey Siegel that you are now, racing at the old VIR, what was it?
It was a barren farm through which a racetrack ran, and it was nothing but partying up on, Spectator Hill. It was a party and a race broke out, really, and there was no safety, anything.
What makes VIR special compared to some of the other tracks you've been to?
I think a lot of it's down to the history and just the fact that it's a naturally formed track around the hills and through the valleys.
Yeah.
And it just goes with the natural locale of the place.
Yeah.
A lot of tracks nowadays are kind of man-made.
If you spent time here, you know not only the track, but you know the people behind the track, Connie, Kerrigan, the whole staff that's here. And as you get kind of further into racing, you realize that those are the things that matter, right?
It's paradise, man. The track, the ground, everything about it is just, it's incredible.
It's got the history, it's got the feel, it's got a lot of the new modern things without taking away some of the charm.
Why is VIR the best racetrack in North America?
Because we didn't change it, and it was built with a guy on a bulldozer, following the natural terrain of the land around rocks and trees.
When people come here, they get blown away. It's just like, oh, I'm driving into a state park. Or I've just come to this magical place that I cannot believe with all the towns I just drove through. Or I went into Virginia, back into North Carolina, back into Virginia, that I got here. What's this trickery?
How big is VIR?
1,300 acres.
How many configurations can exist?
6.
How many programs can run simultaneous?
2. You can have full and Patriot or North and South.
How many days a year does this place operate?
About 265 calendar days, because we have 2 we can do simultaneously.
Right.
So we're really busy from March 1 through mid-December, almost every single day. We run our facility is 3 companies under one umbrella. So we have track operations, which also includes the events, and then the lodging and food and beverage. We look at VIR as this is just our turn with its legacy. We're not going to have it forever. We want to make sure that we pass it through the generations to someone else who will love it as much as we do. And as Kerrigan says, we don't have VIR work for us, we work for VIR, and it always comes first.
And you're originally from Danville?
I'm born and raised in Danville.
So how special is VIR to you personally?
Oh, I didn't never come down here when it was open back in the 50s.
Okay.
I started coming down here when they opened it back up in 2000.
Right.
That's when I started.
So even though you wouldn't come here when it originally opened back in the 50s,
yeah,
would you hear about it?
Yeah, I heard about it, but then I was about a teenager. They didn't have no car, didn't have no way out here, and I always heard it was rough.
Oh yeah.
Because there's 2 colleges in Danville and it's wide open on the weekend.
Yeah, it was known for being a party track.
Yeah, party track.
And so that would maybe tell you not to come out here because it was so crazy.
Well, I didn't have no way to ride out here. If I had a ride, I probably would have.
Okay, so you would have got in on it.
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Yeah.
We are sitting right now in what is probably still called South Bend Farm.
Okay.
And that's named because outside of the tree line all the way around us here is the Dan River. And VIR sits inside of a bend in a down, so it's South Bend. The Foote family came from Olympia, Washington. And the original farmer, he had 4 sons, and he thought, you know, they should be raised on a plot farm. So he bought this place at auction, and he turned it into one of the most profitable dairy farms in this neck of the woods. There was a group of sports car enthusiasts that kind of ran out of a dealership in Greensboro, the Alexander Mann Motors. They wanted to build a racetrack. Then they struck a lease, and they started, you know, basically construction of the track. And the track construction was very interesting. They did it on a shoestring. Hooper Johnson, who was a medical doctor, he had had some aerial photographs taken of this place, and he sort of traced out what he thought might be a racetrack.
Sure.
And so they called the Strickland brothers, and a whole group of them from Greensboro met up here one weekend. They drove around through the fields, this is farm stuff, and they were driving in Dick Snyder's Mercedes 300 SL, and they were tossing line bags out to mark where they wanted the racetrack to go. And the radius of this first long sweeping turn down here is the turning radius of the 300 SL. The turn that used to go around the oak tree, that was the Strickland Brothers motor grader on full right lock.
As much as he could turn.
Yeah, as much as he could turn,
yeah.
Right. There's no surveying involved in this. They just drive, there's the next line bag, you know, and they're driving around. They got to the uphills, and Hooper had just basically drawn a straight line through there. And the Strickland brothers said, you know what, it's gonna cost a lot of money to do the cut and fill to run that thing straight through. Why don't we follow the terrain?
Right.
Voila, one of the most magnificent sections of track in the world. They did that to save the VR people money.
So, best way to Spectator Hill?
Oh, that way.
So we wanted to drive to Spectator Hill, but...
Yeah, there's a wee bit of tree in the way. I bet we can get through that gate. So I think it was around here that the corrugated metal was that said men and women, and then when you went behind it, there was nothing there. There wasn't even a hole, just men and women.
Pick your tree.
Pick your tree.
Gotcha.
1960s VIR, what was out here?
College students. I mean, my God, you've got Virginia Tech, UVA, UNC, NC State, Duke, Wake Forest. I mean, it was climbing with college students. When you look at the pictures, there's no one older than college student age here. Think of the era. I mean, birth control was new. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, it was a cyber party where a race broke out.
Nothing safety. If you lost control, you went through the fields and you'd have, you know, corn hitting you in the head.
The crowd control was a local Harley club. And if someone who was overserved and they jumped over the little white fences and ran down toward the track, some big hog was rolling down on them.
Right.
And
so they literally had bikers as crowd control.
Yes, sir.
So back in the day, you know, this was just full of college kids, basically, laying with not a lot on, and on their beach blankets and whatnot all the way down the hill. There's stories about rolling a Volkswagen down the hill.
Right.
So it really was the site of a party where a race broke out. If only this hill could talk.
I have to say, Spectator Hill doesn't have a great view of the racetrack.
No, it really doesn't.
So this is basically, you could get away with things over here. This is like you could hide the trouble.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
The party got so wild, a lot of people used to come up to us and say, well, I conceived my firstborn child on Spectator Hill. I mean, really, that's the kind of comments that we got.
Yeah.
And they got so wild that they burned the barn down.
What?
That's right. That's when the owners finally said, that's it, we're done.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily that it wasn't profitable. I mean, sure, over time it declined, but it was really just too much hassle.
It was too much hassle, and the young people who were going there, you know, were so rowdy that there was no discipline, and they turned over the cars and they did all kinds of goofy things. Yeah. They got too much drink in them, and they got too rowdy, and the party went too far.
Do you guys know the story of VIR? Like really why I love VIR? I owe a lot to this place. My father was a student at Lynchburg College, as was my mother back, I don't know when. And they had never met, even though it was a small school, but their fraternities and sororities used to come down here for whatever the race was, a Gold Cup or Virginia Cup or whatever. It was like a big deal. So they all would caravan down, and apparently, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't even really want to know. And that's where my dad actually met my mom, right here. So without VIR, I might not even be here, probably wouldn't be here. So I love VIR for the fact that I exist.
This is the blind uphill turn. You got to be set for it and flat out, and you don't know where it's going. And then all of a sudden, here you know where it's going. Nice runoffs practically everywhere.
Yeah,
that you need them.
Dick was so happy about that. He goes, we have a lot of good stuff to work with here. We're not going to have to push and pull a whole lot of dirt.
Start out in the real estate business, or did you do something before that?
My business card, it says Harvey Siegel, serial entrepreneur.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
And this was back when you could say entrepreneur and it meant something. Because now it's like a dating profile that means you're unemployed.
I never thought of that.
So that's sort of the core of your business success has been sort of the commercial real estate sector.
Shopping centers became my, quote, career business.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody suggested I take a shot at vintage racing. And we were getting shut out of the regular tracks because the other sanctioning bodies were consuming the weekends.
Okay. Yeah.
So we need a place where we can go and sort of a home. Mm-hmm. So I started to look at all the racetracks. I wanted to have a more upscale experience for my family, which is really what inspired me to take it to the next step. I said, how about, would you go to a racetrack if it was more like a country club than it was like a racetrack? And she said, well, I'd try it. Mm-hmm. the first time I went to see VIR. It's been sitting here vacant for 25 years. He showed me the road. It was now all red clay, with ruts all over it. When we drove there, the cows were at the top of the hill. Grass was growing out of every possible crack you could see.
I got the call from Harvey's number 2 person, Peggy, that he had put a track in Virginia under contract and asked me if I knew where Danville was. And I said, well, doesn't everybody? I grew up a half hour from there, Martinsville. And I came to New York and interviewed with Harvey, and the rest became history. So I'd never been to a racetrack in my life, never got invited to Martinsville.
Connie, having been a local gal, brought up in the area, was familiar and comfortable down there and had a lot of friends with whom she could counsel.
So you've mentioned your father. Earl Green is a name that's just known within the area, and that's the credit system that you need.
Yeah,
out
that
here in
gave me
Southern
street
Virginia.
credits right there.
If Harvey had not done this,
God only knows.
And it was a township committee, the process by which I could be considered to be the candidate to resurrect the Virginia International Raceway. Well, Mr. Siegel, you're the 8th man to come down in front of this board to tell us they're going to do that. I said, I understand that, and I realize that others may have suggested that they were going to do it, but I believe that I have the financial ability, the vision, and the capability to do it, and the time. Mr. Siegel, we've talked about it, and we have decided that we're going to let you do that. I turned to Connie and I said, what does that mean? Wow. A real estate developer with a blank piece of paper, its own, nobody telling him what to do, where to site the buildings. What I want to do, I can do.
Well, we got here in 1998. This was all dirt.
Oh, right. So where's the first big place you're going to take us here?
I think we should start at Oak Tree Turn.
Okay.
Turn left. Yeah, I like the way you take the race line in your snazzy vehicle.
Yeah, I'm actually standing off the curb so it doesn't shake the cameras off the side of it. Yeah.
And this would be my very first view of VIR.
Oh, ever?
Ever.
So this is the first view you see when you get to VIR for the first time ever?
The first time ever, Harvey and I come up. This was the dirt road and the only entrance into VIR, the South Paddock Road.
Right.
And we came around here. Of course, there was no fencing, no barrier, no nothing. It was just a lot of trees growing up both sides of the track, and this was all alligatored up. And there was this massive 200-plus-year-old oak tree covering this turn. And it was just amazing. And of course, having never even been to a racetrack, I didn't know this was especially unusual.
Yeah, right.
There's a corner station there. There were a couple little half-moon tires for barrier for the corner station.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit of that left that you could see with the big oak tree. And then we started taking all the trees out, which then opened up, you know, this magnificent view.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And Harvey was standing here going, it's got good bones. I think we can work with it. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to do this project so bad.
Right. So they call this a roller coaster. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's just, you know, a misnomer. But that used to be a drop-off where cars, if they dropped a wheel, they would just roll over.
Oh, good.
And I'm not quite sure how they got them out. But if you go through the woods back in there, there's lots of debris. The track surface wasn't much to talk about at all, and there was a lot of trees here, and it was just a huge drop-off to the left. I mean, just massive.
So that meant when you came down this really long straightaway that they made a long time ago, your braking zone went right into trees.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is horrifying because that's a really long straightaway.
It's a really long straightaway. Yeah. Stuck throttle, no brakes was our biggest fear.
Right.
And
me too. So this is Hogpen.
This is Hogpen.
And it would have been kind of up on this.
Yeah, just right at the tip top there. It was just an old dilapidated hog pen.
Right.
Don't remember much about the hogs. Do remember the hog pen because we had to remove it along with all the other kind of dilapidated structures that were here. I wish we had electricity instead of dilapidated structures, but we didn't. And then over here we had a cornfield, and the motorcyclists like to tell stories about back in the day when they would go off and whack, 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 going through the, you know, cornfield.
So Joyce Wilburn of the Danville Historical Society.
Yes.
Are you ready to hang out with us all day?
I am so ready. Let's go have fun.
Okay. So when I'm driving to VIR and I come to Danville, I don't even realize the amount of history that's here. What is it about this place that made it so historical?
We have a lot of history here, beautiful buildings, wonderful architecture, good food, good wine.
Sold.
You go back to the Civil War, it was the last capital of the Confederacy. The last week of the Civil War, the President of the Confederacy stayed in Danville. The house where he was and he lived is now a museum, and it's not only a Civil War museum, but a Civil Rights museum. So it's a united history now. We went from being the last capital of the Confederacy to a mill town with Dan River Fabrics being located here, the world's biggest textile mill. Then we were a tobacco market, the world's best tobacco market, and now everything is kind of being revitalized. And so now we're becoming very diversified, bringing in new businesses, a lot of mom and pop businesses, and not relying on one industry to be our economic base.
CB, Ryan Eversley, nice to meet you.
Yep, good to meet you too. Welcome to the Danville Museum.
Thank you. We are in the last capital of the Confederacy, and this would have been considered the Confederate White House?
Correct. This was where Jefferson Davis resided.
So Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, and when Richmond fell, Danville was the next stop, basically, on their plan.
Correct. They had already chosen Danville as the next stop, and they would have stayed here much longer if Lee had not surrendered in Appomattox. Now this is the Jefferson Davis bedroom. Several reasons we think that he was given this bedroom. Is the rear of the house might have been a little bit quieter than one of the other bedrooms. Also, where the stairway was originally located, this would have been at the top of the stairs, so it would have given him easy access to the ground floor of the house.
So if he had to escape because...
Right.
So this is what you would call a cupola?
Mm-hmm, correct. Right. And its primary function is to ventilate the house. Mm-hmm. However, during the Jefferson Davis's visit here at the house, there would have been military guards posted up here because this is the highest point in the town. Jefferson Davis was meeting with his cabinet here on the evening of April the 8th, when they were informed that Lee would most likely have to surrender the next day. And Lee indeed did surrender on the 9th of April.
It's incredible to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Just for us, just for being nerds, like it's incredible to think about the impact that the news carried into this room
for sure
would have on the nation.
Absolutely.
So obviously this was the Confederate White House,
yes,
but it's also now a civil rights museum.
Correct.
Is that done on purpose?
Yes, we were trying to expand our collections and as well as our exhibits to reflect more of the total history of Danville, not just simply the Civil War history.
So we're here at the AAF Tank Museum, Danville, Virginia. I've driven past this place hundreds of times, had no idea. Douglas, what the hell? How do you have all this stuff?
It's a collection that's just grown from little tiny little thing to what you see today. It's all because of my father, the curator.
Yeah. How many tanks are we talking?
We say we have about 120 tanks and artillery pieces, but there's lots more else besides just the tanks.
Yeah. So, Tank Museum, you have all sorts of stuff. Is that a rocket?
Yeah, it's a nuclear warhead, yeah. Yeah. Where you can see that, right?
just hanging out next to a nuclear warhead.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I've never seen a Panzer in real life before. How do you get a Panzer?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Any Panzer tank is really sought out to be found. Yeah. They're mostly over there in Europe, of course.
When you got your Panzer, this is a funny thing to say, Do you know any history behind it? Like where it fought or anything like that?
We were told that it did go through World War II. After World War II, it was taken to the Golan Heights. It also fought in that war and survived both wars, amazingly enough.
Okay.
Very rare piece to have here in the United States. People come here just for this tank. And how well it's been preserved. We haven't done any restoration on it. We just added a few parts to it to complete it that it was missing. It's just a one-off piece that you won't see anywhere else.
Right. So we couldn't help but notice, but Flamethrower Day is coming up. What is Flamethrower Day? How do I participate? What do you guys do?
Okay, Flamethrower Day is just one of our events we do to bring in people to help fund the museum.
Okay.
We do it twice a year. It's the biggest wow factor there is out there. You're not going to see anywhere where you can see World War II or Vietnam flamethrower fired at the same time. Dueling flames, you're talking like a 60 to 120 foot flame. That's going to make you run about 35 feet back.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, maybe farther.
Yeah.
What is the worst tank movie you've ever seen?
The worst one is probably the most modern one, actually, is Fury. I hate to say it. Yeah.
I want one of those.
You won that on camera, didn't you?
We joke about this all the time.
Yeah.
Ironic that you'll have first African American team owner slash driver to win, compete, NASCAR Hall of Fame, International Motorsports Hall of Fame, to come from what is historically known as, and this is fact, the last capital of the Confederacy. How ironic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. There are other parts of the country he could have lived that maybe segregation wasn't as bad.
They weren't racing.
Okay.
So they weren't racing.
Or
I mean, every township across North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, they had a racetrack.
Yeah.
We had a racetrack in Danville. That's where we started. You know, if you had 2 or 3 acres of land, farm equipment, they cut a track out.
So he would have rather lived in a heavily segregated area of the country rather than not race.
See, my father was a person that he didn't care about your race or your color. You know, it didn't bother him. We have many white friends. We had white friends that lived with us 2 or 3 years at a time. There wasn't a racial issue from the standpoint of, you know, where you may see it or think about it.
So he's making a name for himself, traveling all over, you know, getting a race. And was Danville as like the town? Were they behind him? You know, like this is great. One of our own is out there competing because at this point, stock car racing is getting pretty big buzz.
Somewhat. Danville was always home, and they was hospitable. Mm-hmm. He was making a name for Danville.
Yeah.
Pick up the paper and Associated Press, you know. Mm-hmm. Wendell Scott did the Jacksonville win. I mean, that went all over the United States.
Right.
There were a lot of wealthy people in Danville who he wished it would have helped him financially.
Sure.
We didn't get that.
How have you seen Danville change over the course of your life living here?
I grew up in an era where it was facilitated through jobs. Mm-hmm. We had economic infrastructure that was supporting a good amount of people from Danville.
Yeah.
And so I've seen it both ways. I've seen it with, seen it without.
Yeah.
We're currently in a restoration process, kind of like evolution. Mm-hmm. VRR has played a huge role in that since it's come back. Mm-hmm. You know, it's one of our biggest points of tourism.
Right.
So when you come to VRR, it's a natural segue, you know, here to Danville. Yeah. Fortunately enough, my grandfather's legacy coincides with VRR's initial purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've been a wonderful partner to us, the Wendell Scott Foundation.
Cool.
That his legacy does live on and continue, and it lives and breathes through the hearts and the minds of the youth that we work with every day.
So what does a track president do?
What is it you say you do?
Any?
From the operational standpoint, which is how you started here, and you still have your finger on the pulse of all that stuff, what are the 3 things that, you know, a fan or even a driver like myself wouldn't know that you have to deal with on a regular basis?
Hey,
Yes, sir. What do you need? VIR is very personal to a lot of people. So when we've made some of the changes that we've done, like we made changes to the curbing, we widened the track, I moved start finish, you know, all these different things. I mean, it was almost like I took somebody's firstborn. Yes. Do you not want to do that? The belted tires were something that was we've really been looking at all around the track, just anywhere that there's a head-on impact or there's a way that we can slow the car down. You have to carry this whole thing with you.
Yes.
Okay, so for the driver, you might be slowing down a lot faster than you wanted to. A lot of times people have hit this and then been able to, believe it or not, drive away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey Mike, just letting you know the stage has just showed up. If you wanted to just go and take a look and confirm. This area, the fence kind of went a lot closer here, and we had a lot of fans that were always standing here. And as the track got a little bit faster and as we widened it, you could carry a lot more speeds through here. I knew I didn't like the other catch fence I have in a lot of the other locations, and I asked people to send me, you know, tests, and I want to know about it. So these guys sent me a video of them shooting a cannonball into it, and it was awesome. This has a potential to give this fan, this spectator, whoever, the same product that they had again instead of something weakened.
If I see a forklift sitting right there and the porta-john needs to be moved right there, little things, if I can do it myself, I'm going to do it, but I have to be out of my office to do that.
What were you hoping with this?
I want people to understand VIR is not a racetrack, it's not a hotel, it's not a restaurant. It is a complete experience. It's a destination. It's your bucket list.
So the Oak Tree turn was one of the most historic turns in racing in my career. Did you ever experience the Oak Tree while it was still standing?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it down on the South Paddock before it fell down.
And when it fell, was that like a big deal for you guys?
Yeah, it was like sentimental, right? Like it was notorious, and I heard like they were able to reseed it, like take the seeds out of it and then replant it.
You guys had this iconic corner called the Oak Tree. And then one day, torrential storms come through, blow down a bunch of trees on the property, but the Oak Tree goes down.
You know, they just went around it because that's where the bulldozer went when they built it the first time, and we were glad to keep it. I mean, we got Oak Tree Tavern, Oak Tree's Bomb, and just Oak Tree.
It's a big deal here.
Yeah, and people were building shrines and sending us pictures, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
So
what this is going to turn into is when I'm like 65, I'm going to be like, back in my day, it would rain. And the track would dry, but it would still be wet, you know, things like that.
And there were acorns on it. I mean, we'd run out and sweep it.
One time when we were testing here and it rained and I do a lap and I come up and there's like waving yellows and I'm like, I'm the only car here. How can there be waving yellows? And it's because a branch had like broken and came down online like as I'm coming out of the S's. And I remember laughing like, that's so cool. The biggest thing I read about VIR when it comes to like hate on the internet is like, why didn't they fix the tree and put the tree back? Like, you know, things like
because
that.
People don't get it and they just want the Oak Tree back. I'm like, well, A, you can't grow in 200 years, and B, the FIA won't let you put it back in the middle of a turn.
Okay. So I didn't realize that.
Oh, no.
The FIA won't let you put it back.
No, because, I mean, it was there and it was part of the historic track, and that's one of the kind of allowances that they will try to work with you on. They're not going to make you cut down an iconic feature of your track if you can treat it safely.
That little tree there was grown from an acorn of the oak tree.
So that right there next to the mailbox.
Yep. And it was about this big when we got it in 2013 when the tree fell.
So what's the mailbox for?
The mailbox has an oak tree on it.
Okay.
And so there are notebooks in there and people leave their notes to Oak Tree.
Oh, no way.
So yeah, it's pretty neat.
I didn't know that. My first race here at VIR was in 1970. Big Oak was an icon then. I'm very sad to hear of its death, but glad to know that the legend of Big Oak will live on with this little oak. Hello, VIR. You've given me a place to make so many good memories and even better friends. You've become undoubtedly my favorite place to be in the whole wide world. I've been here when it's 100 degrees and when it's 10 degrees, and your charm and lovability remains the same. Thank you for being such an amazing place that has changed my life forever. Maggie, March 17th, 2017. Hey Joe, how are you?
How you doing, Ryan?
Doing well. So this is where you work?
Well, I volunteer here.
Okay.
The Thomas Day House.
So I've been coming to VIR since the early 2000s. I've driven right through Milton. I've never really paid attention to the sign or knew who Thomas Day was. For a guy like me, can you explain to me the significance behind Thomas Day?
Well, being a free man of color and being the largest furniture manufacturer in the state of Virginia in 1850, there were a lot of laws and regulations against people of color that hampered people of color being successful in any kind of business. And he was not only successful, he was the most successful furniture maker by a factor of about 4 times.
What I've learned about Thomas Day was that it was like a status thing to have his furniture in your home. And it didn't matter his skin color or his history. It was more about his quality of work, his craftsmanship, how hard he worked. And that's what made him so special to a lot of people and wanted his work in their home.
He became very much a status symbol to have his furniture, to have his architectural elements in your house.
So I'm wearing a Tag Heuer watch because Steve McQueen wore this watch in a very famous racing movie. Is it safe to say that having a Thomas Day piece in your home would have been a status symbol, and that's why?
Very much so.
So Southern Virginia, the tobacco industry boom, a lot of farming, probably the biggest industry in this part of the country at the time.
Absolutely.
Slavery is still very much a thing.
Yes.
And yet here's a free man of color selling furniture to, I'm assuming, a lot of slave owners. So you're gonna show us some Thomas Day cool stuff here at the tavern?
Yes. Thomas Day did the architectural elements for this building that still remain. This entranceway is particularly remarkable. It's side lights, transom, panel doors, fluted pilasters here. All of this woodwork would have been done in his shop in Milton and brought to the site and installed. He didn't build houses, he did architectural elements. All the woodwork you see here is either Day or a Day reproduction. His woodwork was designed to work with candles moving through the house, or lanterns that designed the shadows to work on them. That was part of his artistry. And one of the original mantles in the house, the rest of them have been removed. It's in the women's room, so I have to always ask the men to close their eyes when we're going in.
Wait, this is way nicer than the men's room. What is this? What is this?
This is an example of one of Day's mantles. The backsplashes here are just about always triangular. If you could see behind this picture, you'd see that this went up to a higher point right in here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's a mark of Day's mantles. You get the fluted pilasters on the side and real, usually pretty heavy wood construction. He built these things to last, and they have.
So Joe, I've been coming to the Oak Tree Tavern since I first came to VIR, 15, 16 years ago. And I never really took into account any of the significance of the woodwork in here or even the history of the house itself. For someone that might watch this for the first time or has been here before but was just like me in that sense, what would you hope they take away from learning about this house?
To understand that this is one of the major productions or creations of Thomas Day, who was a free man of color in a slave society. He dealt with a white clientele. I'd like for people today to know that even in that society, hard work, perseverance, and a really good product, high skill, paid off then and continues to pay off today. These things were created over 150 years ago, and they're still in use every day.
Gather in front of the camper, please. Everyone in front of the camper, please. Everyone in front of the, okay. We don't know how to end this episode. Yes. So we're thinking let's throw a slow motion party.
Yes.
All right?
Everybody's just like...
I'm going to set this camera up and we're all going to do fun slow motion things.
Sure.
All right.
You don't strike me as somebody who gets starstruck, but Paul Newman seems to have that effect on everybody.
Yeah, when he was leaving, he said, man, there's a heaven on earth that's VIR. I said, may we use that? And he goes, absolutely.
I want to make sure that when you drive into this place, you come in and you say, wow. To be able to do as a real estate developer something that you loved and were passionate about, and do it exactly as you see it should be done.
So what makes VIR special compared to the other racetracks you've been to?
It's more family friendly. It's like a countryside track. Yeah.
I like it because of the viewing points and all the elevation change.
No, this is my home track.
Yeah.
And even if I went to another one, I'd probably get homesick.
Yeah.
I know that if I needed to go to Connie or Kerrigan, we get whatever we need. So this is an awesome place to deal with and get the events going.
It's just one of those places I get excited about. There's a lot of people here. You think it's in the deep south, so it's not really sports car fans, but it's tons of sports car fans here.
Donald, if you could describe VIR in one word, what would it be?
Tremendous.
Everything.
Correct.
Home.
I knew it. I was going to say home. Yeah, perfect.
We've asked a lot of fans what their one word to describe VIR is. What would your one word be?
Growing.
Authentic.
Turn up the heat. I'm gonna make my move.
So you meet a lot of people, you're a track owner, you're hobnobbing at these big events. Do you know Bobby Rahal?
I do. I've met Bobby. He's awesome.
Do you know Graham Rahal?
Graham Rahal?
Do you know Bobby Rahal?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's the president of the Road Racing Drivers Club, which I am a member of, yes.
And do you know Graham Rahal?
Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat. I get it glowing whenever I'm going. Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat. Ready, set fire. The flames getting higher. Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat. Make way for me.
1, 2, 3.
Perfect.
We're on a road trip!
On the next episode of Dinner with Racers.
I'll tell you, Ryan, I am so excited to do this next trip with you.
I know.